Right now, this is something that came out today, just a few hours ago. It was a press release from ACORN, COVID-19 State of Renters Survey, and what kind of picture is presented for tenants as we know rent is due after tomorrow. Let's go to the phone line right now, and Fred Barnes is a spokesperson with ACORN, and he's on the line with us this afternoon. Hi, Fred. How are you?
Good, Sheldon. How are you?
I'm well, sir. Thank you very much for doing this. For the benefit of our listeners who may not be familiar with what ACORN is and what ACORN stands for, could you help us out here?
Yeah, definitely. ACORN, we're a nonprofit organization that helps moderate the low income and the part of the population.
Mm-hmm. And you guys did a survey. You asked people to feed back to you some of what they're anxious about, what they're concerned by. What did you hear, Fred?
Okay, well, the results we got, we found the majority of people who responded are low income, which means making below $25,000 a year. 70% of those who responded also said COVID has had an impact on their financial situation. And 42% of respondents don't qualify for the CERB or EI. So low-income people are falling through the cracks, such as people on income assistance. And 75% of everyone who responded are slightly to extremely worried about paying rent this Friday, May 1st. And that's even more than the people who have been impacted by COVID-19. This problem existed way before. The pandemic just made it worse.
Right. Fred Barnes is here. He's with ACORN, and they're releasing some of the statistics that they were able to gather. I've got the report in front of me, and it's a lengthy document, and it is a cross-Canada one. Can you tell us how, perhaps HRM, how Nova Scotia fits in this picture?
Well, basically 15% of people who responded have been served an eviction notice or threatened with eviction when the ban was lifted. And these are the kinds of landlords MacLeod's telling to work things out with. Mm-hmm. And people are also worried about cleanliness and maintenance in their buildings. A lot of high-traffic areas like elevators and lobbies aren't getting cleaned, and some people are stuck in isolation with major repairs.
When this was put into action, this report, this survey, this study, this polling, if you will, I'm wondering, Fred, was this information you expected? Is it more damning than you had thought? Is it more precarious than perhaps what we had imagined?
It is, but also it is and it isn't, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Because
Fred?
I mean, this is the kind of thing that's been happening even before the COVID-19. So,
yeah, right.
I mean, the COVID-19 is just going to compound that.
Absolutely. Fred Barnes is here. Fred, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? How you became a part of ACORN? What brought you to this?
Yeah, sure. It was just about around 2 years ago. I had a community leader at the time. Her name was Erin. She came to my building where I live here in Dartmouth, and I guess you could say she was recruiting. Mm-hmm. So she was asking, people about our situation here, situation in life, and, if we wanted to make a difference with what was going on. And our the first rally I had with them was outside of my building here, actually, on 15 Kennedy Drive. And it was a protest. We held up signs basically saying bed bugs don't pay rent,
right.
That sort of thing. And we were holding up our signs to the passers-by in their cars, and they were waving, honking at us. So we got quite a bit of attention, and we got Metcalf's attention too. And not long after that, we finally got our new elevators, which keep breaking down. So definitely. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No. I was just going to ask. I mean, here it is. We're coming another month with rent due and people who are struggling, and I don't want to ask you personally about your own financial situation, but clearly this is something that you feel passionate enough about to be considered a spokesperson.
I will add that right now I was eligible for the CERB and I was on EI before that. So, mm-hmm. And my wife also gets a disability pension. So basically that. Right now, we're doing okay in that situation, but I mean, we have been in hard times before, definitely. Where
this rally that's planned, a number of phone actions. Can you tell us what you're asking people to do?
Okay, well, right now we have rent freeze call-in action. We're basically calling the provincial and federal governments and demanding a rent break, rent freeze, full eviction ban, and housing for all. So basically at 1 o'clock today we have a phone-in. You can check our Nova Scotia Facebook page for ACORN, and it'll show you event details and how to call in. We're also calling for a rent break, adequate subsidies, to renters. No tenant should be paying more than 30% of their current income on rent. So that's in line with the livable rent amounts. And also calling for a rent freeze. Right. No rent increases, automatic or otherwise, during this state of emergency and 6 months after. There was one particular ACORN member who had his rent raised in January by $400. Just basically right away.
Yeah. We've got Fred Barnes here from ACORN, and this report is painting quite a damning picture that almost a third of the people who responded, there were 1,100 tenants who did respond, said that they don't have enough money to pay the rent. You alluded to what the Premier had said, and that two things. One, if you can afford to pay your rent, do it. If not, work something out with your landlord. Can I ask you, obviously you feel that's maybe not realistic in some instances, in some cases. Can you tell us why?
Well, to be honest, it's not, because many people have lost their jobs, and maybe if they didn't work enough hours, they may not be eligible for the CERB or EI, or, people who are already on income assistance, who are already struggling to pay their rent, and, if they're struggling right now, then that just means the landlord, could feel compelled to kick them out even in the middle of this pandemic, which we feel is just not right. Nobody should be evicted during a pandemic for any reason, except if it's a safety issue to other tenants. Right.
So what would you like the Premier to know? What would you like him to know about people like yourself or others who are in this situation, people who took the time to participate in this survey?
Well, we'd like the Premier to know that much of Nova Scotia is struggling right now to keep afloat. There are people who have lost their jobs or are not eligible for CERB or EI, but also people who are already struggling before the pandemic. Now it's a more crucial issue now, even because if they're threatened with eviction, then they'll be out on the streets, and that's going to make them a lot more vulnerable to the pandemic that's going around right now.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering, and someone just sent me an email, and he was asking if we could clarify how some people receiving assistance are considered to be falling through the cracks. Seniors are finding this difficult, and as we keep hearing every day, the province, the federal government, municipalities are working towards trying to find a way to help. Can you elaborate? Do you care to talk a little bit to that, Fred?
Well, we're one thing we're doing is again a full eviction ban. Mm-hmm. So there'll be no evictions for any reason during the state of emergency. Another solution we're looking into is something that's been done in other provinces. Housing for all. We've been proposing for hotel rooms since they've been empty, and since there's been many cancellations, to open empty hotel rooms to people who are homeless or living in shelters. So that way, the hotel is not gaining revenue right now. If they could use the hotel rooms to help out the disenfranchised, then that would do them a great service.
Once again, Fred, I thank you for helping us through this today. And I know talking to someone that you first meet on the radio can be a little bit challenging, but I appreciate the fact that you feel compelled to try and speak up and speak out on behalf of ACORN and the people involved. And again, you're hoping people do what this afternoon at 1 o'clock? What is it that you're asking of them?
It's a phone-in conference. You can find the information available on our Nova Scotia ACORN Facebook page. Okay. There's a dial-in number there for the Atlantic provinces, and there's instructions on what to do when you get in.
All right. We will hope that people take you up on that offer, Fred. Thank you for doing this. Thank you so much.
Not a problem, sir. I appreciate the opportunity.
Be well. Take care.
Take care.
It's Fred Barnes with ACORN Nova Scotia. Check out their Facebook page if you're looking for some more detail. And, of course, as they say, an overwhelming of 97% of the people, the 1,200 or so respond to the survey, are in a rental situation, and 73 say they're paying, $1,500 a month. A portion of people reported paying between $1,500 and $2,000 in rent, and then there were a few people who were paying over $2,000, and 60% earned less than $25,000 a year.